Chapter 17. And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, and that Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up towards Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it. When Ahaz ruled Judah, Rezin the king of Syria and Pekah the son of the king of Samaria attacked Jerusalem, but they could not win or break into the city. In verse number 2, and it was told the house of David, saying, Syria is a confederate with Ephraim, and his heart was moved, and the heart of his people, as the trees in the wood, are also moved with the wind. And Ahaz and the people of Judah, who Isaiah refers to as the people of David, when they heard that Syria and Samaria had joined forces to fight with them, were afraid and worried, and they trembled like trees shook in the wind. Verse number 3. Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, Go forth now and meet Ahaz, thou and Shear-jashub thy son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field. The Lord told Isaiah to take his son at this point and go and meet Ahaz at the conduit or canal where Ahaz was inspecting the water supply to the city of Jerusalem. How incredibly detailed is the Lord's direction to Isaiah, telling him where he would find Ahaz. Ahaz was out there inspecting the city's water supply, as the only water source for Jerusalem was the Gihon spring, located just outside the city walls. Being dependent on this external water supply made Jerusalem more vulnerable to attack, since an enemy could cut off all the water supply without having to even enter the city. And since Ahaz would be deciding how to protect the water supply from the two invading forces, this would be a great time for Isaiah to deliver his message about how the Lord could protect the city if they trusted in him. Verse number 4. And say unto him, Take heed and be quiet. Fear not, neither be faint-hearted, for the two tails of these smoking firebrands, for the fierce anger of Rezin with Syria and of the son of Remaliah. And the Lord told Isaiah to tell Ahaz to listen to his words, to be careful, to wait out things, not be worried or afraid of the anger of Rezin and the son of Remaliah, who couldn't do anything to them when the Lord was with them. Verse number 5. Because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Remaliah have taken evil counsel against thee, saying, Let us go up against Judah and vex it, and let us make a breach therein for us, and set a king in the midst of it, yea, the son of Tabeel. Isaiah continues by saying that Syria and the leader of the tribe of Ephraim, Pekah, who lived in the region of Samaria and northern Israel, have plotted to overthrow you and put someone else on the throne of Judah. Verse number 7, Thus saith the Lord God, It shall not stand, nor shall it come to pass. Isaiah is told to tell Ahaz that the Lord says, Don't worry, because they won't be able to do anything to you. It won't happen. Verse number 8, For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus Rezin. And within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken, that it is not a people. And Isaiah continues that the Lord told him to tell Ahaz that though Rezin, who is the head of Syria's capital Damascus, the tribe of Ephraim will be broken within 65 years, and its people will be scattered. Verse number 9, And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If ye will not believe, surely ye shall not be established. For the head of the tribe of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. And as stated in the previous verse, his people, the people of Ephraim, will be broken apart, taken captive, and scattered. If you believe that they cannot overcome you, like I'm telling you as the Lord, that they cannot overcome you, you will be protected and allowed to prosper. Verse number 10. Moreover, the Lord spake again to Ahaz, saying, Ask thee a sign of the Lord thy God. Ask it either in the depths or in the heights above. The Lord told Ahaz through Isaiah to ask for a visible sign to prove that this is the truth. God usually does not like people asking for signs. He tells us clearly that you need to do things, to have faith, and to do things before you are blessed. But Ahaz was offered the sign, not for himself, but to allow God to be able to save the people of Judah. Verse number 12, But Ahaz said, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Lord. And Ahaz, however, replied, saying, He would not ask the Lord or tempt his anger. Look at this carefully. One might think that Ahaz was being righteous by not asking God to show him a sign. But the truth was that Ahaz did not believe that God would or could save him. And we see what happens later. Verse number 13, And he said, Hear ye now, O house of David, is it a small thing for you to weary men? But will ye weary my God also? Isaiah gets really annoyed with Ahaz. He can see what's going to happen if Ahaz doesn't do what he's told. And in his annoyance, he tells Ahaz not to frustrate and bother the Lord by his foolish choices to turn down the proof of a sign when God offers it. Because Ahaz refuses to ask for a sign, Isaiah says that the Lord himself will give them a sign of his presence through a prophecy of something that will happen in the future. That prophecy is called the Emmanuel prophecy, and it was to show Ahaz and Judah how the Lord had truly been with them and how it was truly him advising Ahaz through Isaiah. This prophecy can be divided into 3 parts, with each part standing as an individual prophecy also. In verse number 14, we hear the first part of it. Therefore, the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and shall bear a son and shall call his name Emmanuel. This is the first part of the prophecy, and it talks about a miraculous birth that is to come. Isaiah tells Ahaz that the Lord will give you a sign himself. A virgin will become pregnant and shall give birth to a son whom she will call Emmanuel, meaning God is with you. The relevance, like most of Isaiah's prophecies, works across generations. It could be referring to the birth of Jesus, and it could also be referring to a birth of a child in the days of Isaiah, perhaps even to Isaiah's wife herself. Remember that Isaiah's goal in sharing this prophecy was to increase the people's faith and belief in the Lord by showing them how he had been with them right through everything. Verse number 15, butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and to choose the good. This is the second part of the prophecy, and it talks about what the child would be like. Isaiah says that the young Emmanuel will grow up eating butter and honey, the food that was common to poor people, who lived off the milk from the cattle and wild honey that they found. He would live a life that taught him to know the problems faced by the poor, to learn and experience for himself the immorality and the wickedness of the people that were around him, to face and to overcome temptation and keeping himself free from sin. This again definitely sounds like the life of Jesus, but it could also relate to the life experience of a young child in war-torn Judah. Verse number 16, for before the child shall know how to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. This is the third part of the prophecy, and it refers to what will happen socially and politically in the land before the child reaches maturity. Isaiah says that before Emmanuel is mature, the 2 kingdoms that were planning to attack Judah will be destroyed and the kings would be killed. Historically, we see that Rezin, the king of Syria, was killed by the Assyrians because Ahaz had made Judah a vassal nation to Assyria, and then Pekah, the king of Samaria, was killed soon after as well. Verse number 17, the Lord shall bring upon thee and upon thy people and upon thy father's house days that have not come from the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, the king of Assyria. After telling Ahaz what he and his people would gain from trusting in the Lord, Isaiah then begins to warn him about what would happen if Ahaz asked the Assyrians for Assyria's help and tells him not to do so. Isaiah warns Ahaz that if he asks Assyria for help, the consequences in the long run will be terrible, and the people of Judah will face troubles that they haven't seen. Verse number 18, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall hiss for the fly that is in the uttermost part of Egypt, and for the bee that is in the land of Assyria. He warns him that if you do so, the Lord will call upon you and your people something that will trouble you, torment you, or hurt you. You will be overcome by these invading swarms of insects that will completely destroy you. The insects referred to here symbolize the Assyrians and the Egyptians, and the hissing noise is a comparison to the whistling noise that beekeepers made to call their bees back to their hives at that time. Verse number 19, and they shall come and shall rest all of them in the desolate valleys and in the holes of the rocks and upon all the thorns and upon all the bushes. He says that the invading pests will come into every single place. They won't leave anything free of their presence. Verse number 20, in the same day shall the Lord shave with a razor that is hired by them beyond the river by the king of Assyria, the head and the hair of the feet, and it shall also consume the beard. Isaiah tells Ahaz that Assyria will eventually turn on him and destroy him. And if he ignored the words and the warnings of the Lord would allow this to happen, for them to overtake Judah and to take all his people prisoners. Now, the Assyrians invariably cut off the hair from their captives. Okay, they cut off their beards, they cut off the hair on their heads to humiliate them and to make them feel unmanned. They then also chained them. They chained them by the feet, and they were led in file like that. So the reason that they took the hair off was that if the captives tried to escape, they would stand out. They would stand out amongst all the others as the only ones there with no hair. Verse number 21. And it shall come to pass in that day, a man shall nourish a young cow and 2 sheep. And verse number 22. And it shall come to pass, for the abundance of milk they shall give, he shall eat butter. For butter and honey shall everyone eat that is left behind in the land. Isaiah prophesies that there will be so few people left in the land, and with such little wealth left, which we see through the ownership of just 2 cattle, that even though they have so little, they will have enough food to eat from the curd of the butter made from the milk of their few cattle, and from the honey that they get from the wild bees. Verse number 23. And it shall come to pass in that day, every place shall be where there were 1,000 vines and 1,000 silverlings, which shall be for briars and for thorns. He says that even more, in that day, in the place where there were crops and farmlands that were worth a lot of money, there will be only thorny bushes and wild plants. Silverings are pieces of silver or coins that they used. Verse number 24. With arrows and with bows shall men come thither, because all the land shall become briars and thorns. And because most of the land has been abandoned and gone wild, thorny plants and wild animals are found that bring the hunters there to hunt. Verse number 25. And all the hills shall be digged with a mattock. There shall not come thither the fear of briars and thorns, but it shall be for the sending forth of oxen and for the treading of lesser cattle. Isaiah ends his prophecy by saying that where the land was once tilled, hoed, and cultivated, only thorny bushes and plants grow, and it is no longer useful for anything except grazing and wandering of cattle.